Yesterday I did a few videos about deep faking, and particularly about a fellow who was deep faked as a defector from the Conservative into Reform. Reform deep fake was my little banner. As somebody pointed out, I never resist an opportunity for a poke. I think that probably should have been for a joke. But let's start with a simple claim. Deep fakes are not fundamentally a problem. They are the latest expression of a very old human impulse, the desire to imitate, to create illusion, to play with the boundary between truth and artifice. We have been deep faking for centuries. The only difference now is that machines do it faster. Take trompe-l'œil, that exquisite Renaissance technique that is literally meant to deceive the eye. Artists painted doors, fruit, columns so realistically that viewers reached out to touch them. Was that sinister? Of course not. It was a celebration of artistry, of perspective, of the human mind's capacity to believe in beauty even when it knows it's being fooled. Or think of photography in the 19th century when it first appeared. Critics called it mechanical, soulless, even dangerous. It captured ghosts, they said. It froze life in unnatural ways. But photography became one of the great democratic arts, the foundation of journalism, cinema, and education. Deepfake technology belongs to the same tradition of illusion. It's a tool, a mirror, that can reflect truth or distort it depending on how it's used. And long before artificial intelligence, artists were blending truth and trickery for entertainment. Georges Méliès, the magician of early cinema, made people vanish and reappear using stop-frame substitution. His Vanishing Lady from 1903 was one of the most brilliant and one of the first moving deep fakes. The Soviet filmmaker Sergei Eisenstein used montage to rewrite history, cutting and splicing events. In Battleship Potemkin, for example, he defined montage or film editing to make ideology look inevitable. In the 1930s, Stalin's propagandists went further, erasing purged officials from photographs, cropping, and literally removing people. That was deep fakery by hand. Yes, it was sinister, yes, but the fault was moral, not technological. And the fact that we could do it led to the development of film trickery, like Zelig, like even Mary Poppins. Jump to 1994, Forrest Gump. Tom Hanks shakes hands then with John F. Kennedy and John Lennon. Nobody accused that of corruption. We admired the cleverness. More recently, Peter Cushing, not terribly well, was digitally resurrected in Star Wars Rogue One, and his performance was pure illusion, but also a tribute to cinematic history and to technique. Each step along the path shows that the technique itself is not the issue. What matters is the intent. And to condemn deep fakes as inherently bad is like condemning paint because it can forge a Rembrandt. Deep fake technology is a neutral instrument, capable of satire, education, or abuse. A deep fake of a politician confessing to crimes is malicious disinformation. A deep fake of a politician confessing that he wants to join Reform UK is a malicious piece of disinformation. A deepfake of the same politician explaining Plato's Republic to school children is education. A voice-synthesized version of Shakespeare reading his own sonnets could bring poetry alive for a new generation. A deepfake. In fact, I've been working on something like that for the last 2 years. A deepfake Marie Curie teaching science might inspire young girls more effectively than any textbook. The artistry should be admired, and the ethics should be taught. Both can exist at once. Humour, too, has always relied on imitation. Spitting image was a form of pre-digital deep fake, puppets and caricatures that exaggerated the truth to reveal it. Deepfakes can do the same. Humanize political critique, animate historical argument, expose vanity through mimicry. I did a video about a year ago, maybe a little bit before that, of Boris Johnson singing a song, I lie when I can, and that's an early version of deep faking. I was playing around with lip syncing for a long time. I'm still not convinced it's there. I'm not convinced it's there. If it were there, I would be using it far more. We relate instinctively to a human face. to a human voice, or to a voice that we know. And that is why deepfakes work so powerfully as vehicles for satire and teaching. Used intelligently, they help us to question what we see, not simply to believe it. And this is where education comes in. We must teach children and adults to recognize illusion, not to hide from it. When I was on the circle, part of the task was learning to spot catfish, the person pretending to be somebody else. It was a lesson in awareness, not paranoia. I found that it was something that I instinctively knew, not something that I could deduce. And I remember the voice of God, the person who is constant. The other day there was Stephen Lambert was on television saying that the current series of the celebrity traitors, the traitors are not spoon-fed or encouraged or tricked by voices. Well, he says because it's a game. Well, the circle was also a game, and I can say with my hand on my heart, we were constantly being talked to, and in fact, the voice that I had was asking me to explain how I knew things, not did I know things. He wasn't encouraged. He wasn't giving me information, but he was asking how, and I have every belief that that the voices are doing the same thing for the current traitors, and Stephen Lambert is very careful in what he says, because if his defence is that this is a game and you must obey you must play by the instincts of the game or the rules of the game. The game's rules were set up long ago, and the game's rules include a voice of God. Each individual participant in these reality TV shows has their own voice of God, who may equally be ignorant of the wider trajectory of the show. Deep fakes demand the same literacy as catfishing, the ability to question, to verify, to think critically, and we should teach people to detect a fake, not panic about one. Now, some say platforms like YouTube or TikTok are corrupted by deep fakes. There's a person on the on the comments now, and I've just lost it. Who's saying to me, well, you're on YouTube. You can't question YouTube because it is one of the primary platforms for deep faking. Yeah. That argument is intellectually lazy. Of course harm exists. Disinformation, scams, exploitation. Harm has always existed in art. Painting was used for propaganda. Music has always been used for hate. Theatre has stirred riots. Film has shown cruelty and pornography. Yet nobody claims that art itself should be banned. Well, people do, unfortunately, but they shouldn't be listened to. The presence of moral failure does not invalidate the medium. What matters is how society chooses to regulate, educate, and contextualize. The Mary Whitehouse objections are objections too far. Some of the greatest art in history is deeply problematic. Pasolini's Trilogy of Life and Sarlo, made and I think never exhibited before his death. He was killed partly because of Sarlo, confront violence and obscenity, but they stand as moral criticisms of power and hypocrisy. They are great films. Dante, to go back even further, imagined eternal torment with unflinching cruelty, and he targeted very specific people with menace. Catullus wrote poetry that was both lyrical and obscene. The Marquis de Sade explored the extremes, the extremities of freedom and depravity. Milo Manara's brilliant drawings are both erotic and controversial, yet undeniably skillful. We don't ban these works, we study them. They challenge us to think about the limits of art, power, and pleasure. Deepfakes occupy the same terrain, uncomfortable, potent, and worth mastering. Deepfakes are the trompe-l'œil of the digital age. They don't destroy truth, they remind us how fragile our perception of truth has always been. Instead of hysteria, we should encourage curiosity. Instead of bans, we should encourage education. Instead of fear, discernment. The artist deceives not to harm, but to illuminate, to show that what we see is never the whole story. Deepfakes, if used wisely, are a continuation of that noble deceit. So let's admire the artistry. Let's celebrate the innovation and teach the next generation to tell the difference between an illusion and a lie, because illusion in the right hands is not the death of truth. It's the beginning of understanding, and hiding an entire country, hiding a part of our civilization from the reality that this manipulation is possible is to hide people from education, to hide people from the truth, to hide people to fail to prime our society for the real dangers that deep faking can actually engender, and in an age when we are grappling with artificial intelligence and the development of the computer and the thinking machine, we need to become more aware, more attuned, more wiser about identifying what is true and what is not true. So bring on the deep fakes. Bring them on. Let us learn.